Okay, we're going to have a quick look at anonymizing data. So anonymizing data, or synonymizing data, more correctly, is where you replace a unique identifier belonging to the students with some other number that corresponds. So essentially, you have a key that corresponds to either their email address or their name. Usually email address is better because the names can duplicate. And then all of that information is going to correspond to that one anonymous number. So it lessens the burden in terms of, you can now share that data more widely because it's not actually identifiable anymore, provided you have, complied, as you have to have done with GDPR. Nonetheless, let's have a quick look at how we might do that. So here our unique identifier is going to be the email address. And what we're going to do is we're going to replace that with some other identifier. And okay, I'm going to demonstrate it here on 200 lines, but it's actually possible to do it using this method. You can replace any number of lines and they don't have to be in any particular order. So if you have a log file that has 200,000 lines in it, this will work just fine for that. So the first thing we need to do is make our key. We're going to replace this set of email addresses with a specific other set of random numbers. So we'll start a new book, and this book is obviously something that you are going to have to keep private. It's going to be a new Excel file. It's going to have to be, kept away from the general study because it lets you obviously link the synonymized data back to the real personal information. But we'll call it, so we'll make our random number, and we'll make this column identifier. And what I usually do is just assign a number between 1,000,001 and 10 million so that it's unlikely to repeat itself. Now we can check for repeats, and we will check for repeats, but use the function ran_between, which returns a number between our lowest value, which is 1,000,001, and our highest value, which is 1 less than 10 million, and it'll generate a random number. And we can fill that all the way down. And you'll see every time you enter something in another cell, that recomputes. So we're going to need to make those numbers static. So let's select all those cells, copy, and then paste. And when we go to paste, we'll paste special, or we'll paste just the values. And now those values aren't going to change. And we can actually delete the column that has the random numbers in it. Okay, and just to do a quick check for duplicates. So if we want to check for duplicates, we're just going to select the data that we're going to see if there's any duplicates in. There's different ways of selecting it. Let's do it the manual way. We'll see there's 301 lines. And if we go to the data tab up the top and we click on this button here, so remove duplicates, it will search for duplicates, push OK, and it says no duplicates found. Perfect. If it removes duplicates, then we're going to have to add in our own random numbers, but obviously it's very easy to just generate a random number between 1 million and 10 million. All right, onwards. And now we have random numbers that correspond to email addresses. All we have to do is do our multiple find and replace. So let's go back to our spreadsheet. This is what we want to find and replace. Well, if you push Alt and F11, you can bring up the screen for making macros, the Visual Basic interface. And then if we insert a new module, so up in the top left here, insert a new module, and then we're going to need our text. So the text is actually below this video, or it's also in the PowerPoint presentation you're going to be seeing. Copy that text. Lost that. Insert a new module. Paste that text in. And in terms of what this is doing is it basically automates repeatedly using Excel's find and replace, telling it what to look for and what to replace it with. So that's fine, but you have to be aware, if that's what it's doing, that it's going to depend on whatever the settings that you happen to have set in Excel for find and replace. So Control and H brings up the find and replace interface. You can see we were using it before, and we want it to match the entire cell contents. And that's important because otherwise it'll start matching subsets. Not such a problem when you've got really long strings, but if you're matching shorter numbers or shorter bits of names or anything like that, it'll start to replace in part rather than as a whole. So once that's done, we can close that again. Control and H brought that up. We can go back to our script and push F5 to start it running. And then we want to select for our multiple find and replace the original range of the things that we want to replace. So we want to replace the email addresses, and you can either select the entire column or you can drag all the way down. We have 300 students here. So that's our original range. That's fine. And what are we going to replace that with? Well, we don't have to replace it with something that's in this Excel file at all. We can actually replace it with something in another Excel sheet. So we have to select both columns. We're going to select, these are what we're replacing. This is what we're going to replace it with. Push OK. Give it a second. It takes a little bit of computation, especially if you have a really large Excel file. Or if we did as we did there, and we just selected the entire of both columns. It's an inefficient way of doing things, but give it a second and it comes back, and now we can see that in our sample file, the email address has been replaced with the identifier, and then we can delete all the other things. So we'll delete that. We may or may not want to keep anything else. And now our file is synonymized. So I have a track of which identifier corresponds to which email address, and from there I can identify the rest. But I can distribute that data knowing that nobody else has that correlation or can make that correlation. All right, hope that helps. If you have any questions, post them below. That's all for now. Thank you.